And we are back for the final time of the day. Detonation FocusMe versus Crest Gaming Act. And what can we say? DFM are basically the model of consistency. CGA are the definition of coin flip. Typically, that usually only goes one way, Temp.
CGA, like a lot of 45% players, when they really work and they look great. And when it doesn't work, they die in 20 minutes to Axis Gaming, or any team in the league, really. I'm really excited. I think DFM could maybe interact with CGA in a way we wouldn't expect. So I'm going to sort of leave a little bit on the table. I think CGA stand a decent chance at upsetting the way DFM have been playing recently. Rascals have done it. CGA sort of next on the table. Ignore those recent losses. They could take it to DFM.
I mean, it's worth noting that most of the CGA roster have been playing particularly nicely. I want to shout out Kassin and Hybrid. They've been looking fantastic in their wins. And yeah, we can talk about the Axis loss, but yeah, that is pretty much the 45%, as you were saying, Tem. Dodge, you're a jungler yourself. How are you? Where do you sit on Kassin in the state of the jungle suite we have in LJL?
I am insulted, sir. I am a top laner. Junglers are the bane of my existence.
Hello, bane of your existence here.
That being said, Kassin has looked absolutely nutty, along with Hybrid. It's what you've been saying all night between breaks, right? The point sort of is, wow, this guy would be the best in the league if they weren't playing against DFM. I mean, Kassin has looked cracked out and nutty, just absolutely awesome. But when you're going up against Steel and Hybrid likewise, and you're going up against Utapon, it's a toss-up, and I think DFM probably takes it more consistently. That is for sure.
Speaking of Utapon, it's kind of terrifying how much they leave him alone and how little he dies even when left alone. Like, he seems to know exactly what he needs to do when left weak side. Like, he will farm up. He might lose some CS, might drop down a little bit, but he is never, ever, or very, very rarely, shall we say, getting caught out in these plays. And Temporal, I don't know if you love your deep stats, but I did some reading. Do you know what the total historical record for DFM CGA is?
Yes, Brackish is a great host and prepared me 20-3. So.
Oh yeah, I said it during the break.
Yeah,
I am smart.
Down. Well, someone wrote it down as well, which is very, very handy. I'm not big on my historical records, but 20-3, an absolute mountain to overcome here. CGA only in DFM's weakest moments picking up victories against this side, historically.
Historically, exactly. And is it time to see a bit of crazy factor? Obviously, we've seen the team can be very, very flippy, but is there an angle for CGA to try and turn it? I mean, that's a good point, actually. DFM have played against cheese and kind of silliness earlier in the split and dispatched it with relative ease.
Yep.
So outside of, it really is just the 45%, isn't it, Dodge? It's just like go for a play that if it works, you can snowball the game. If it doesn't, you kind of just, like, DFM just walks over you.
I would say what CGA has going for them in this matchup is the one style that we've seen capable of felling DFM so far in this regular season, where they've looked so head and shoulders above the rest of the competition, was Rascal Jester playing heavily through the bot lane, picking double peeling enabling picks. I believe it was the Tom Kench Zillion that came out in that game. And CGA, they know how to play around the bot lane. Hybrid is just so good. The sort of question mark, the friction that arises in that area is Kaito hasn't shown a lot outside of the realm of traditional mid lane AP carries. So I don't know if the Zillion type beat, so to speak, is in his wheelhouse, but CGA might have an angle in a way that we've seen DFM show weakness, if only once before.
Yeah, and if you put Kaito onto one of these enabling picks like the Zillion, it doesn't really matter too much if he falls behind, right? Like, he's just throwing bombs, giving movement speed, and putting down chrono shifts when it's important. Like, yes, the timing of chrono shift is obviously pretty key, but it's not like playing 5D chess like you do with some of these more complex assassin pick type champions.
Yeah, well, it's like Temporal said in the last game, right? You only get one Devour if you just pick the Tom Kench, and you only get to make that one mistake to begin a fight. When you're playing against a team that's much better than you, what do? You hedge your bets. You give yourself the capability to make more mistakes and not get punished. Chrono Shift and Devour, that's 2 mistakes you can make. Maybe that's enough against the likes of DFM. It was for Rascal Jester. We'll see if CGA maybe could find something, in a similar wheelhouse, but that's, I suppose, remains to be seen.
Is this a Kale angle?
Maybe. To sort of
no, it is not a Kale angle, by the way.
Our bits together. We've mentioned the great insurance policy, the greatest salesman in all of DFM's history, Udapon, who's able to just be left there on the weak side. So you mentioned you're hedging the bets, your Zillions, your draft trap champions like that, who can really twist something standard around on its head, into multiple melees. The Zillion is incredible. As long as it doesn't become a gaping hole, as you mentioned, that just opens up and lets your opponent move around the map. So if we want to see CGA bring this together, maybe something like the Zillion. I'm a personal fan of the Syndra for Kaito. I think it's the backwards and forwards he needs. I think CGA look good on it. The Vex in some situations, but it's a bit more linear, and we want to keep our options open for Kaito. I think that's where he's looked best. And as long as CGA manage to get their proactive game going forwards, we then have options, and those 45% plays can really start to make an impact if some of them land.
And usually, 45%, we say the 45%. The first one is 45%. Yeah. The first play is 45%. And then if you win that, it becomes 60%. And then you win that, it becomes 70%. And that's how, I just explained how to win a game of League of Legends, I suppose. But if you take a good play, then obviously it becomes easier and easier and easier for you to make sequential good plays. But the key point in this game is, as you rightly say, the 45. Can they actually get the play that puts them in the driving seat and prevents DFM from dictating the tempo of the game?
It's going to be a challenge. CGA has shown very high highs. That's what we've touched on all along. But when that coin lands heads, it really can make Middlecott's day. And that's something I think we should all be happy about. Likewise, when it lands tails, it could ruin Middlecott's day, which I think is something Temporal would be happy with. So it remains to be seen. Either way, somebody's winning.
I do love teasing Middlecott about CJ's performances. It's a great time. Just the absolute utter aghastness at some of their defeats that really, really were already victories, and clutching victory from the jaws of defeat the way they have across the season. Think of the 2v5 with the top side, just the insurance to wait, get Hybrid back where he's going, and then watch Hybrid's carry performances. So enjoyable as a viewer. So I think we're going to have an interesting game from a viewpoint perspective, even if it is maybe not the most technically challenging game. I do want to see the ease of execution from CGA. I think it's helped them in the past. We've spoken of their mid lane maybe not performing sometimes, the team dynamic not coming together. So that sort of thing would really excite me to watch.
Ease of execution is a term I love because it's applicable in all states of League. Like we can talk about it especially in spring splits when we talk about teams being less coordinated, like we had in the first round robin. Going for tough, mechanically intensive, shot calling intensive compositions just leaves more and more angles for things to go wrong. One missed shot call means that a fight gets lost, and so on and so forth. So going for a team that is really simple, just press R or kite back, protect the carry, is nice if you are in a situation like we have here, as you're saying. You're playing against a better team. Try and force them to make errors rather than putting the onus on yourself to get yourself ahead and make plays.
I mean, we've heard CGA called the CLG of LJL before, and what did CLG do when things were at their worst? They said, we're going to pick Vi, we're going to pick Galio, and we're gonna press R at the same time. And they almost got some wins doing it. Maybe they got one. So I don't know if you have to go that far, but I do love the
maybe not in this current state of CGA, because I mean they're at 8-5. Like, okay, yes, this game is a bit of a mountain, but yeah, this is not CLG territory anymore. CGA are actually a very competitive team, especially on the days when the coin, as you say, does land heads.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think the other sort of angle to attack it from for the side of CGA, maybe less so pure ease of execution and more so, like Temporal mentioned, playing to what picks have been working for you comfortably. I think Kaito's really looked good on the Syndra, for example. So I think there's plenty of angles left for CGA to go through. And it really, at this point, I'm just really raring and ready to go to get into the champs, like to see how they choose to do it, because I'm starting to find myself a bit of a believer maybe in the CGA coin flip coming true.
First sign for me that CGA will be here to play the game. I want to see Zeri on AD carry. I don't even want to see this handshake. You know, it's better if they get the Jinx, because I think it's just simpler to activate than the Aphelios. But I want to see Zeri. I want to see Volibear if we see a standard jungler out from DFM in the first rotation. Something like that. I want to see CGA's game, and I want to see those big pop-off things where they looked best showing up nice and early, with then the variable portion in the second, your Syndras, your Zillions, your enablers, and sort of the foundations that keep it all together come after instead of before here.
I want to take a bit of a moment to zoom out, because we do have a somewhat extended period before getting into Champions League. I want to zoom out to the league as a whole, because as we highlighted at the start, today marks the end of the second round robin and the beginning, Temporal, as you said, of Act 3, the final run towards playoffs. And we've spoken about the tiers. Obviously, DFM is undisputed S tier, best team in the league right now. And doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. CGA stuck in the middle of that big scrum that is the greater amorphous blob of middle teams. And then Axis, Hawks, and V3 sat down towards CD tier.
It's so funny that you choose to address the rankings as tiers, because you said, you know, we've spoken about the tiers, and the first place my brain went was, look, Brack, V3 might be crying after their performance this split, but I don't think it's right to go right to that metaphor. There were some tiers, but there's been some pog too. But no, you mean the homophone, of course, the tiers of teams in the LJL. And, you know, as we move into Act 3, as you call it, things are starting to get a little bit more clearly defined. Some things have been clearly defined all along, like DFM. But one thing that's really looking good that I think we should mention is Rascal Jester undefeated in that second round robin. If we want to talk about the zoomed out look at the league, we were talking earlier about DFM maybe going on a historic win streak. It's 7 straight, I believe, for Rascal Jester. So, no.
14-0 end of split? 14-0 end of split, maybe?
Come on,
maybe?
Temporal, you can get on this train. I believe
Rascal
in
Jester
you.
hopefuls.
It's
I mean, I'm on the hopium. I'm on the hopium.
It's a somewhat stark contrast to last summer. We saw DFM come back from a pretty successful MSI and fail horrendously, losing record. Rascal Jester's undefeated for quite some time. And then, because it was a slightly different format, come week 3, DFM still hadn't won a game. I think 0-4 on that occasion. And managed to win nearly everything on their way back up and rise back through the rankings, reminiscent maybe this Rascal Jesters side of that performance in the reverse, where Rascal Jesters are now recovering and are coming forwards to take that second place spot. All important battle for the Juggernaut is still on, and I think Rascal Jesters is a pretty good bet at this stage, where we've seen Burning Core and Sengoku slip against lower seeded opponents. This Rascal Jesters, on its current form, with its 2v2 enabled, that is the core of the Jesters team. It is so striking to see them take it all in a row. You know, that's a full round robin. They're not like slipping against a particular style or a particular team, and they beat the DFM that was the sort of promised main character that was about to go undefeated. So there isn't really a defined weakness from results side. Obviously in each game we're going to see a take from each team, but it's now on them to beat this Rascal Jesters 2v2 that is the defined best thing going on right now.
See, I would refute that slightly, Temporal. I would say that DFM aren't the protagonists of the league, as it were. A team that's so dominant as that strikes me. If we're talking like Shonen, then DFM are the bad guy because they're just absolutely dominating everyone, no mercy, no nothing. And then you've got Rascal Jester, who's probably the main character, who suffered at first, but they're rising up. Their best friend Sengoku, and they're punching back and forth as they rise up the ranks to try and challenge the lofty heights of DFM. Stop me whenever my headcanon gets a bit ridiculous.
I find it so funny that we successfully peer pressured Temporal into getting on the Rascal Jester hype train.
Let's go.
And you immediately say, well, to refute that, we had a good thing going. We had him right where we wanted him. He's the conductor on the train.
No. So to refute specifically that he was saying that DFMs were the main characters of the league. They are the team to beat. I would never claim otherwise. The results speak for themselves. They are
the
basically.
Situation.
Pretty much. That is the angle that is good to take. Got no further developments towards Champion Select. So I'm going to assume that there is some kind of something that is delaying us from getting forwards. So, what more can we talk about? Temporal, do you have any more fun stats, fun tidbits to fill some time with?
I tend to lean on narrative personally over numbers. They're great for telling a story. My favorite numbers, but not the whole picture. Yeah, I'm excited. CGA, they've had a pretty decent season. We were expecting not a lot after the first few weeks. It was really, really looking rough. And just to see them come together as a unit, to see Hybrid joint leader on MVP votes, I believe, as of the start of show today on 5 with him and Jet. So just more pop-off LCK, peak 80 carry performances. I think it's like I mentioned before, it's going to be a great game to watch no matter the outcome. And that's a huge thing here. I think CGA are just incredible to watch. And as long as this form continues through playoffs, we've got the 3 teams of the LJL. So to zoom out even wider, because I believe this is going to take an age before we get into game now at this stage, we've got 3 teams that are dramatic or heartbreaking. We have our Burning Core that falls apart in a dramatic way every time there is hope, except this season. Please keep it together, guys. Got Sengoku that even when they lose, they look exciting, and when they win, they look exciting. And it's really, really dramatic no matter what happens, and that's carried through multiple iterations of this team now. And then we've got CGA. You've mentioned the coin. You've mentioned sort of the outcome just seems completely disconnected from reality. And that really, really invests a lot of feelings from viewers. And one of our favorite play-by-play casters sort of got attached to that quite quickly. And I'm attached to this season. I really love it. I really love watching CGA play the game. I really, really enjoy just seeing what the potential outcome might be.
Yeah.
And thank you. Going off on that tangent has brought us precisely the amount of time we need, Temporal. So thank you for that. We are into pick and bans now for Game 4, DFM versus Crest Gaming Act. Guys, take it away. Bring us to the end of the day.
All right, Dodge, it's game time. Let's go.
Hi, thank you, Brack, for the handoff there. We are in. At last, the hype was coming to a crescendo, and now we are ready to see how this draft does play out. It's so fascinating to me here, Temporal, how much Tryndamere priority there is. Granted, he's a great champion across every major league right now in the right spots.
Insane.
But
Yes.
LJL really loves banning out this Tryndamere, and you know what? As a top laner myself, I empathize with that all the way through to the bank. It's the Tryndamere and the Poppy taken away from CGA. TK joining them.
Ebby keeps talking about in interviews how he just loves the Tryndamere. He thinks Tryndamere beats everything. He just loves it. And maybe Nap not wanting that this game, not wanting to have to face off against the King in the top lane this patch for sure. The Jinx coming in nice and early. This is a bit odd from DFM. It looks like they banned away the Zeri, the Aphelos we mentioned, Hybrid's huge hyper carry champions. And then they've not banned the Caitlyn. So they're not respecting the ability of CGA to shut down the lane. It looks like CGA have just set some bans that are good against DFM on the whole. They've banned away the Tom Kench. We can see the Kaiser come through. Recent adaptation, this AD carry picking up huge priority across the world. Either AP in mid, hybrid in bot lane, or the traditional AD carry. All three of these builds work very, very well, and it doesn't lose too badly against the Jinx. Like, they both have a long warm-up time near the start, so quite compatible, really. The Hecarim will complete CGA's first rotation.
Yeah, this Kaisa definitely an exciting pick to watch out for. If any of you are shocked by the idea of the AP Kaisa mid, if you thought you misheard Temporo on that one, no, it's the truth. Faker picking that one in the LCK. Not necessarily having the most impactful game on it, as now the Xin Zhao is being considered by DFM here, but it is here, and it is a multi-role flex is the Kaisa, as it is that Xin Zhao locked in for DFM. Steal. Not on the Hecarim, as Kassin going to be taking that one away this time. And now Yaharong going to be thinking on what's going to come through here to round out the first rotation of picks for his team. What do you expect to see, Temporal?
So, Adaptation 1, the Kaiser coming through. I don't think we've seen any the rest of the LJL. I might have missed one. Not sure. In any case, that's the adaptation that DFM then have to play towards. If they ignore it, it will overcome this traditional 12-point everything composition centered around Jinx, Xin Zhao, being that variable frontline and hyper carry. So the Nautilus is the pick. Kaiser struggles a lot in lane. The repeated CC from the Chompers, from Jinx, and from Nautilus is pretty much everything. Will lock her down and then make this 2v2 quite difficult. CGA rolled through a few things there. They were thinking about a support to counter the Nautilus. You saw your Leona, you saw your Tom Kench. That's probably going to be the focus here, whether they were trying to lead DFM's bans or not. Those are quite important to try and get the Kaiser through the lane. Instead, we've gone to the Ahri. Kaito will be under the spotlight here. We saw it in the last game. We saw Jet's MVP-esque performance on the Ahri, getting proactive, getting assassin performances across the map. That will have to be the name of the game here for CGA now. They've opted into that style, and there isn't much they can do to flex out of it.
Yeah, the Silas is a takeaway for Crest Gaming Act here. Not all the most impactful ultimates yet, but definitely don't want to hamstring yourself by leaving that one up. Yaharong so strong on that pick, as he seems to be strong on basically every pick. This guy has a champion Ocean, and he can play it all to the nines. So definitely not one you want to leave up. And it wouldn't be LJL. We got Gnar picked in game number 1. We got Renekton banned in game number 2. Our unofficial mascots essentially coming through. And it will be the LeBlanc taken off the table as well. One would assume here, at least I would with my silver game knowledge, that the counter pick will be getting saved for the top lane for CGA. What do you expect to see in terms of supports matching up into that Jinx Nautilus?
So the Alistair was flashed. It's a decent answer. You can take the Leona here. It's locked straight in from CGA. It tends to stabilize the 2v2 attack back into the Nautilus, particularly if it can't proc its Aftershock before you can load a bunch of Kaiser's long cooldowns into the champion. CGA are kind of stuck here in one way. This is going to have to be something physical damage from the top lane, otherwise they're going to skew their damage profile. It's okay if they want to do that, but it has to be an active choice. Whereas DFM left way, way further open. Both of their solo lanes now to pick. The Akali going between the two. We saw the Renekton takeaway, so I wouldn't even be surprised to see Ebby's Akali here. But we'll see what the final pick brings.
It will provide some clarity in terms of what is getting flex where. Akali, as you point out, workable in both solo lanes. Evie going to so much more of a carry style this split than we've ever seen in the past. Would be very hyped to see the Akali, and with the Vex coming through, it's almost guaranteed as the Teemo Hover, a little bit of cheeky fun. Never in a million years does that go through. Please don't make me eat my words on that, CGA.
No, it's not going through. It's cool. The Renekton would be the easy R5 here. Really, could play either lane, can get kind of what he wants, but it is the LJL special. And since they aren't maybe confident in taking takedowns in the top lane and taking the 1v1, this looks like Nap opting into that team fight style will be supporting his teammates just to be able to get that team fight through and make sure Hybrid and Kaido on this Kaiser, and Ari are able to beat through.
Yeah.
Team fight.
All drawn up are the battle lines. Over here, the lanes have been assigned. And overall, I really enjoy the Vex pick here into the Ari. In essence, right, Riot tried to sort of sell us on the idea of Vex as an anti-mobility mage in terms of how she was assembled in her design. So we'll have to see if that does hold true in this matchup with the Ari, who's going to be Spirit Russian, zip-zapping all about the place. In terms of, and again, when we have big, weighted matchups like this where it's not really even keel, going back to that magical realm with the nameplates turned off, whose comp do you like coming through better here going into our final game of the day, Temporal?
If you turn all the plates off, I think CGA is favored. I think they're escaping the bottom lane conditions. The Kaiser just so good in the current meta. Sort of a real surprise to see how pro players are able to push it through the lane. Unfortunately, as soon as you turn the plates back on, you realize that Ari isn't going to be able to abuse the Vex as they should. Vex is sort of control mage. It's sort of the weird thing with an anti-dash control mage is when you've got the 3 dashes for the Ari, it boosts the damage of the Vex, but the Vex cannot burst at the same rate. It stops stuff like the Yasuo, which, needs some time, needs some autos. The Fear really slows down. It doesn't really slow down the Ari if it'll even hit at all. So knowing that this is Yaharong on the Vex may twist that, may make Kaito's job way harder. The Ari should be able to attack this, but with the plates back on, that's really quite difficult.
Yeah, we always knew it was going to be a bit of an uphill battle from Crest, but in theory, they have a bit of a better composition, a couple of lane advantages potentially going through their way. It's going to be up to level of execution, of course. Can they find those 45% plays and coin flip their way on through? We'll find out in just a second, as here comes the game. We are loaded onto the Rift. We see a multi-man stack up towards the top line.
Why is that? That is super disrespectful, and hopefully Nap sees this one coming a mile away.
Oh, the Fear, though, was found, and now the dredge line, but it was sort of blocked by the wall to an extent there. Nap will have to flash, but that is more than enough an advantage off of an early invade. But look at Kassin, knowing he will have the room to go in and get the deep vision off the back of it. So a nice little adaptation coming out at the very least, but still going to be hard for Nap being down that summoner spell early.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's worth it, to be honest. But in any case, we will have that trade come through. Summon spell for ward. Runes that flash in front of us. A little bit of a standard setup from both teams. Pings out across the map. Both junglers pathing away from each other. This kind of favors the Hecarim. He doesn't really want to see Xin Zhao until much later on. Doesn't want to fight him in the early levels. That's completely fine. We'll try and impact this top lane. Instead, whereas Steel's job is clearly to break open this 2v2. They don't want to let Hybrid and Nema stabilize. They want them to suffer as quickly as possible.
Yeah, early dredge line coming through from Harp, but at the level 1, who knows what can really be made of it. We see aggressive trading in the mid lane as these bot lanes don't want to give it up. We'll continue to sling the auto attacks back and forth. Fairly even trades, but they will continue to jockey for the push down there. And one thing that I would like to note in terms of the runes, as we see Blitzkung giving the robotic assessment once again, the AI power spike graph coming through. It is the glacial augment coming through for Nemo, and you can do that on the Leona, right? You have the W to offer you resistances, but the Blitzcrank, or rather the Nautilus hook champions, they're all the same, is going to set up a kill here, perhaps with the exhaust coming through the last auto. Udapon picks it up, fully stacked, lethal tempo as well, won't deliver much more, but DFM doing what DFM does. Udapon looking crazy. Yeah, that was
that's
that
huge.
was a fight.
That's Harp just finding the golden line. That's a cheetah recall in bot lane pre 3 minutes. That is absolute evisceration from DFM. Look for it here. Harp just sees the angle, sees Nemo start to path away to the top right, and it's too far. The level 2 more than enough. Udapon pick the chompers, presumably pre-communicated, and the flash for the takedown, the trade back over. So huge. That's a lane that's meant to stabilize slowly. With the Kaiser, you saw on Blitzkung's graph, that sort of peaked around 11 minutes, comes online faster than the full hyper carry traditionally. But lordy lord, is that awful here for CGA. They are well and truly in trouble now. Their jungler's pathing away, so he can't even go and help. That is just complete panic mode now for CGA to try and get back out on the map.
Yeah, not the early game you want to see. Now, it will be Kassin taking the reset around that crab nap, crashing this wave, but Evie doing a fine job cleaning up as much of that CS as possible under the turret. That's why DFM gives him the big bucks. That's something my Akali would never be able to clean up. It will be the split of crabs across both sides of the river. And now Xin Zhao is right down here where his team is already winning. Perhaps sniff out something, but Kassin looking to back up the play.
DFM completely playing to this bot side now. They've invested 2 wards down here. Harp bled a bunch of experience, so we're going to see Udapon level even faster. While Steel does recall, they were there on time. If Kassin had done everything perfectly and a little bit quicker, and maybe with that a little bit of a hover on the top side, Kassin will be spotted out now, but they were there on time to match the 3v3. If it came through, Kassin will realize that DFM very aware of what he was up to.
It's so much vision.
It is a lot. They need this bot lane now that they've invested into, that they have generated a large lead in to maintain that lead. They can't let the Kaiser go for much longer. And we'll see here, CGA, they're going to try and back this play up. They're going to try and pour everything into the bot lane now.
Yeah, that Zenith Blade connected, but was dealt with in kind. The Glacial Augment now on cooldown. The Bone Plating already ran all the way through, but Kassin is going for it. They're gambling. They are going to find Udapon, but they trade Nemo. At the end of the day, that is a kill going over to Hybrid. You will take it. The 1-for-1, perhaps a bit painful, but if they continue to get this wave pushed in, is it kosher?
It's cool. It's cool. CGA, they might not get that huge explosive advantage, but they do take out Udapon. Harp will be forced now to take a bad reset to try and hold this wave. He really looked like they were going to lose that wave for a second, and Harp, dredge lining the wall, manages to catch it. That is not the worst wave state here. Most importantly, while all of that was going on, the observers flashed Yaharong in base. Kaido was able to force Yaharong to recall, and while the CS advantage hasn't come through, that is a good sign for this Ahri in the mid lane that they're getting where they're going. Ebby, now playing with his food, is going to be able to hold this lane up here just in the right place. So this means when Kassin finishes his current jungle clear, it's going to be objective or nothing. Ebby will be nice and happy under his tower on this Kali. And that means that CGA, they've invested into this bot side. They've been punished mildly with less of an ability to come in through the top lane. It's now going to be dragon or bust. They're going to have to fight Steel. That's the thing they didn't want to do. They don't want to go the 3v3. They don't want to face the Xin Zhao this early on. They want that Hecarim to get faster and faster, stronger and stronger in the late game, or later on in the game at least. And now, with CGA not spotting out that ward right in the middle, might be a bit difficult. Kassin, he's taken that reset. He's running straight to the bot lane. This is going to be cataclysmic if CGA take the straight fight.
Yeah, will he arrive on time? Steel, so much patience, but the dredge line doesn't connect. The gank has shown itself. It could have been tragic for CGA, as you point out, but they have not fallen victim to the Xin Zhao shenanigans, and now it will be the Zenith Blade forward aggressively. Kassin is here. Jungler versus jungler with a knockback. Kaido first on the roam as well. Not going to convert on anything here as the CC coming through on Kakaito, chunking out multiple carries of CGA. Meanwhile, we see Yaharong crash that giant wave in the mid lane, trusting his bot lane, going to be able to... Oh, connects on the ultimate, takes it all the way through and finds it as well. DFM being the big winners on the back end of that play, weathering the storm with the numbers disadvantage in the bot lane, and then finding the win in the end anyway.
CGA knew they couldn't take the straight 3v3. They knew Steel is investing everything he's got into this bottom side. Those top side camps not rotated at all. Yaharong knows that Kaido's gone. He gets the wave in, and then he does not allow the free rotation back to mid. The awareness to know that Ahri vulnerable now after all that return damage. So as we see CGA coming in, they know they can't take the straight fight. DFM, there are only 3. If they get the 4 here, if that charm comes through, Steel would fall here at level 5 to 7. The return damage there really punishes Kaido. Udapon or Steel or Harp communicates this. Yaharong goes looking for it, even though he's on vision. That deep pink ward we saw Harp place at level 2 is all Yaharong needs to find Kaito out, punish the damage that was pushed onto this Ahri in that bottom lane exchange, and with that DFM extend their lead through a numbers disadvantage fight. They keep pushing forwards.
Yeah, the scuttle is the first piece of crab picked up, but there's more legs left at the buffet table as Shelly is on the menu as well. Kassin is here, has the backup of the mid support. Hybrid as well coming through the mid lane, has to address the wave first. Nemo taking a little bit of poke out from the wall, but Shelly eventually loses her patience, goes on back to her dwelling, and things continue to sit at a tense knife's edge sort of scenario. Now it's DFM starting it back up again, going to use that wind becomes lightning over the wall, and now it's the dredge line into the Zenith Blade. Supports changing positions. The onslaught of shadows doesn't find much work, as it will be the support of CGA falling first. Steel oh so low, but walking on out. Can Kaito get it done? The charm goes right through a stopwatch member. Evie picking up another kill on the back end. Nap slowed up by the zap, and now another ultimate connection from Yaharong forces the flash. Now the dredge line, the rocket to find it for Utapon. The reset's not going to continue out from Yaharong, but still a very convincingly won team fight from DFM.
DFM realize the objectives of CGA's comp. They react in the moment to moment, and with that, a huge team fight victory. DFM just continue extending their lead. It looked good here for CGA for a moment. You'll see the engage come through. They walk into the river. They notice it started. They know the Meganar is there for Nap. It times out just a little too soon. See Ebby sort of mess with him in the top side. Meanwhile, Steel, the main facilitator of this engage, breaks apart CGA as they come forwards. Nemo will fall as he's separated too far from his team. Steel won't die. Hybrid used the Void Rush to try and take out that Zinzao within his own ultimate, but unfortunately burns his only defensive tool. And with that, Ebby on this Akali, free reign, able to do so much damage to a vulnerable short-range AD carry. That is the key difference here between Aphelios, Jinx, and the rest of the pack. And then DFM are just able to play it forward. CGA's main carries out of the fight. Easy victory.
At $3.5 grand is the wallet advantage for DFM at this moment. Definitely where you need it as well. Utapon getting so accelerated, collecting so much of the gold, going to be able to hit those massive Jinx spikes sooner than you would want if you're a CGA fan. Middle cot in shambles right now as that cull is ticking ever closer to completion as well. Going to be interesting to see if CGA can find any sort of a comeback angle. Interestingly enough, no Dragon Take yet at 11 minutes. So we'll see who goes after this first Hextech Drake. But that Rift Herald ready, willing, and able to be loosed from Steel's inventory to secure some priority at a critical moment. Maybe some plate gold as well.
Maybe some plate gold. Would be nice to sort of see it on the next wave in mid. You know, DFM have just reset their bottom lane. So this is Utapon on full power now. Up against Hybrid with Atira the Goddess. Unfortunately, the vulnerability of this Kaiser, it can stabilize the lane, but when it can't, it's still short range, so you continue to bleed after the fact. And that's really the difference here, that with that early play to break open the lane, DFM just continuing to push forwards. Kaiser not set up very well for that. CGA will be present here. They will not see this one coming. Yaharong over the wall avoids all of that vision in the river. DFM can now pretty happily play the scaling game. You know, the Hecarim really the only large scaling threat here. CGA's Hybrid will be well delayed into his power spikes. DFM, not a lot to worry about for the next few minutes. Solar Flare is completely wide. This is desperation.
Yeah, they blew the flash, but I don't know if that'll be enough. They do get the onslaught of shadows all the way forward. Can they take out Utapon in time? They can. Hybrid now having the room to pop off, gets those plasma stacks, finds Steel before the knockup can come through. That dredge line, perhaps not what you want from Harp. And CGA managed to come out on top there. The early flash blown from Utapon, and I think the cleanse wasn't quite available yet either. So a nice answer back from CGA, still showing signs of life here.
Showing signs of life, just in the nick of time. You managed to get some gold back. It'll be appreciated. We're going to have to see one or two more of those before CJ can really contest a straight fight, or which is kind of what their composition wants to do. You want to be able to pick away those diving threats. Nap should be fine bouncing out of here. Just the Gnar so good at absorbing that pressure. With that DFM, they're doing fine. We shouldn't worry just yet. The replay will break down how this happened. Nemo goes looking for this, goes looking for the solar eclipse nice and early. flash away from Udapon is completely fine. The re-engage is slightly questionable. We do see the ability of CGA to dive faster. You know, when you hit the Leona, its two buddies can dive very, very quickly. So you've essentially pieced together what CGA were trying to do there for them by hitting the Leona, by getting her in the front line. The Void Rush, the Onslaught of Shadows come through. They're able to dive on a target, take out the flashless Udapon.
That they did. DFM, as we do snap back into live, was seen to use that Rift Herald to collect some turret plate gold there in the mid lane. Will be so close to cracking this tier 1, unlocking the map for themselves. The gold lead not quite where it once was, but definitely not anything to be worried about, as you do point out for DFM quite yet. They have a massively scaling Jinx, sitting quite comfortably even after giving away that death, soon to be completing the call as well. Yaharong gets it done, gets this tier 1 in the mid lane, going to pick up that first turret bonus gold. Things sitting pretty for DFM. We'll have to see as the second Herald spawns if there will be any sort of a fracas developing around that, and whether Hybrid can continue to do what is necessary on this Kai'Sa to sort of secure the late game. It's going to be hard, as you point out. It's shorter range. It doesn't have the typical late game explosion that we think of compared to the Jinx, but Hybrid really, through and through, has been one of the big win conditions for this team. And when Kassin is on that more tanky utility Hecarim, really going to have to put it on his shoulders.
It really will be. It speaks great to, never mind DFM coming in here.
Yeah, Nemo going to at least find the peeling solar flare for himself. Is Kassin hiding in this brush? Wants no part of it. They know he's here, though. This horse cannot run away. Has to blow the ultimate to do so. So a nice uncontested pick. Maybe more as well as Yaharong. No fear diving forward. Harp not looking as good with the dredge line, but it doesn't matter because Yaharong's so clean. The sidestep into the killer instinct, however, but the exhaust curtails any answer back. And DFM just continuing to show off and have fun down here. Yaharong popping off on the Vex. Oh, almost found another one as well on the back of it.
Almost found the extra. Really, really rough. CGA clearly had a plan there. They wanted to try and find another dive in, try and break apart the team. I see Kasinga's really deep here. But unfortunately, the numbers advantage is called. Ari spotted on the mid wave. And with that, CJ going to full retreat. Kassin on the Hecarim, he maybe should have just started channeling the recall right here. There's nothing more to be found. Don't think it would have quite mattered. Steel spots him out. Able to really, really get onto the horse. The depth charge follows no matter where you go. With that, Yaharong with a confident dive. Just clips Hybrid, just able to push him forwards. Hybrid would find the return here. That is enough with the Cathian Rain coming through, but the exhaust more than enough to reduce that damage, really make it the complete play for DFM here. I think the only way back in for CGA, we have to see that fully executed dive. They've done it twice now. That is, I think, a really, really clear indication on the scoreboard of DFM. 2 deaths for Udapon. That's unusual at this stage in the game with this much of a gold lead. So we got to look to CGA to skill check, to execute their composition once more for their last sort of chance in before this Jinx gets out of range and out of hope.
Yeah, DFM going to convert on Shirley. It's funny you mentioned the 2 deaths of being a lot for Udapon. Obviously, KDA not always the most meaningful stat in and of itself, but with context, it can be really interesting. Brackish had asked us for interesting numerical tidbits in the break between games, and one of them that's pretty crazy is Udapon sitting at about a 10 KDA for the season, with a support who is almost always roaming out of the lane to go and affect other areas of the map. Just really, really dominant play all the way through from Udapon as he begins to hit this Ocean Drake, going to pick up the second one here for DFM. So that's just a clean sweep of the neutrals all the way through. The 5k gold lead as well. Really starting to build up is the feeling of impending doom for CGA.
It's not getting better here for Crest. It's it's going to be a bit rough. We do see at least the hull breaker now for Nap, so he's going to be able to play that side lane into the Akali quite well. Stops the magic damage being able to so easily take out large minions, and with that, hopefully some gold injection. We do see from Hybrid, most interestingly, we've gone over this Kai'Sa a little different to how we see most picks. No serrated Dirk, which is just a super efficient item and gets her the Acathian Rain evolved nice and quickly. So instead, Hybrid just opting into the full scale. Looks like it's going to be the Nash's Tooth next. as quickly as possible. And with that, it's going to be sort of a wait for the spike rather than I'm good right now. So I'm looking maybe to see CGA wait a few more minutes, try and bleed a little less, and come together over Baron rather than anything earlier. We've seen Kaido relegated to a side lane now, not able to roam away in mid. Yaharong's effective performance on the Vex, making that an impossibility. So with that all said and done, it's now on CGA to find that coming together moment to pick their time to fight.
It is DFM who has 4 members up here, going to secure this Shirley charge, unlock the last of the tier 1s for themselves, have that line of scrimmage pushed so much forward as a result. Might even secure a second charge here. The Void Seeker does connect on Shirley, but you gotta get that eye. That's the important part, and Hybrid will collect that extra 25 gold. Won't let the tier 2 fall under threat, but still a successful series of play for DFM. And now Baron is the next objective to hit the map in just 40 seconds here. Going to be such an easy take with an accelerated Jinx, going to do so much DPS. Any picks coming through could spell that purple worm being collected by DFM. CJ are going to have to play so carefully.
It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. Stopwatch has been used by Harp, but that playmaking ability, the focus here for DFM, that's what they've chosen to go towards. They need these moments to go for them. They need the flank from Ebby to catch out Hybrid, to catch out Kaido, and then to make CGA's composition impossible to play. That's the name of the game. Instead of playing their own, they've got to ruin CGA's day. CGA have to execute perfectly. You'll see the slow bleed out here, all foretold by that first play in the bottom lane. Really, really difficult here for CGA.
It reminds me, Temporal, of an I'm a Cutie Pie quote, which is, the best way to win in League of Legends isn't to play the champions that are fun. It's to play the champions that make sure your opponents don't get to have fun. And that is certainly the strategy coming through from DFM here.
To a degree, I don't really trust Cutie Pie when it comes to anything but right-clicking really fast. Nor should you really.
I just think it's a cute way of
of
playing with a winner's mindset. Although Cutie Pie having done a lot of winning.
It's a sour AD carry's perception of what goes on around him for sure. But in an essence, it is DFM trying to play spoiler here. They've got the big tools to do it. It is kind of the way Vex likes to play the game. If you just look at her in a vacuum, you know, your opponent wants to do things, dash around, and you'll be rewarded with more damage for them trying to be proactive. Instead, the way we've got to see it this game is DFM have to manage the best of both worlds. As we'll see, Steel will spot the ward in the wall. Then we're pulling out all the tricks here. It's just so difficult for CGA to approach this. They're going to have to keep checking. The Baron is, you mentioned sort of the name of the game. You know, neither team has a super empowered take, but Hybrid now has his Nash's Tooth. He's only a few stacks away from finishing this Mana Mute. We're going to see the first big fight where this Kaiser isn't just a dive threat, but also a full AD carry, consistent damage throughout. And with that, it might be CGA's time to shine around this Baron.
Yeah, it was CGA pulling out all the tricks there, trying to camouflage that ward against the red banner in the back of the pit. I appreciate the gamesmanship. Now 25 seconds about on the mountain. Drake could create a bit of a split map situation as Kaido being found by Evie. And that was a nice little dance back. The Everfrost not going to create any meaningful CC there with the Shuriken flip trickery. And it is DFM just pushing forward, clearing out lots of vision around this bottom side jungle of CGA, going to have all the control they need to keep eyes on both objectives. Critically, it is 2.5, almost 3 items on both of the big carries for DFM. As much as we focus on that power spike for Hybrid, it's going to be an uphill battle to output more damage than that Vex and Jinx. Such a scary combination.
It's going to be a lot. DFM are coming in deep. Baron was the focus. I don't know why Nap's up here on his own. Kassin will be nearby, but
has the Gnar bar all the way up, finds the ultimate, but is forced to E flash. And Evie continuing to chase will get stunned up. Hybrid, though, coming in off the back of it, using that CC to proc the ultimate, so at least answers one back. Zooming in from nowhere was Hybrid there to collect the prize. That is top laner for top laner. But look at DFM. They still have their big carries on the map.
It's still there. Like, Kaido completely isolated in the bottom lane, chose to just stick there. When you're gonna assign your weak side top laner with your hull breaker near an objective, you need to come together over a specific time. You need to know where to interact with your opponent. Instead, CJ just sort of sleepwalking forwards. It maybe looked like they were going to pivot down to the dragon, instead try and get that objective bounty. But instead, DFM just left in the driver's seat now. Top for top is fine, but the 4-man unit here from DFM is still able to play spoiler. It's just CGA not quite coming together, getting caught off guard by a DFM play. DetonatioN FocusMe will go to Soul Point because of it.
Yeah, that Mountain Soul going to provide good amount of value for everybody on this team. The Akali likes to sort of dash in and out and play tricky around the fights more so than straight up tank, since that chem tank degeneracy that we saw has been more or less nerfed away from the Akali builds, but definitely going to find some safety in the shielding and the bonus resistances. Shield going to be feeling good against those Void Seeker pokeouts from Hybrid as well. With that Nashor's Tooth, those W's going to at least find some poke damage, mitigate a little bit if they can collect on that Mountain Soul that they have set up for themselves. But in the meanwhile, it's one objective left on the map, so all eyes around the Nashor. Trinity Force going to be picked up pretty late for Nap here. Of course, rushing that Hullbreaker delays what is already in and of itself a pretty expensive mythic, but maybe that can be a little bit of oomph they need to find that dive forward, to find that CC lockup, and maybe take out some key targets. But DFM continuing to just play up and play confident.
Confident. The Void Seeker here we'll see from Hybrid. So good when you can't find any vision. Part of Kaiser's recent resurgence, just being able to check your own quadrant so easily on a very low and very inexpensive cooldown. Very beneficial hit for CJ. Even though they're on vision, they know they're not going to get Death Brush, they're not going to get checked out. They're able to at least have a holding pattern around the Baron.
Does look like it's going to be the AP Kaisa as well coming through. That's Luden's components sitting in her inventory, so a lot of focus on those Void Seekers.
I suppose if you're not going to take the straight fight, and at this stage CGA would struggle to do so, just a little bit more damage beforehand. So now the onus on DFM to engage swiftly if they can find CGA. Checking so carefully forwards into their own quadrant. They want this Baron to not go down. Their ability to clear Baron waves quite limited at this stage. You mentioned the Triforce here for Nap as well. It just does more damage than the Sundara. You know, it maybe offers slightly less sustain, but the move speed and AD on each stack, just so good for something like the Na. These continued fights, just lots of AD, lots of damage, and without a huge tank on the other side for DFM, just makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, we see Hybrid does reach that 3-item precipice, has caught up to Udapon to an extent, but Udapon has the stopwatch ready to go. Could be such a big factor in turning one of these fights. Void Seeker is going to really start to hurt, though, with that bonus spell penetration off the mythic passive from the Luden's Echo. It feels like it's so difficult here, Temporal, for CJ to find an angle of approach, as that's the depth charge coming out into the zap, but not going to find anything as Kassin trades his ult for the support's ult to get on out of dodge. Another dredge line not going to connect as Nemo walks right into the midst of multiple members. Yaharon going forward, finds the Everfrost across multiple people as well. Now will be counter locked up, but that's a quick 2 kills, as I'm not entirely sure what the thought process was there from Nemo.
A little bit of decision paralysis, perhaps. We did mention it was on DFM to take the straight fight, and the straight fight they do take. No one poked out yet by Hybrid, no one picked off by Kaido. And with that, CJ's front line do fall. DFM will be able to convert into the Baron now. CJ going to try and stop this.
Yeah, Kaito now in the midst of those trap jaws, just going to be picked out as well. So that's the Baron Nashor going through. So much tension, all of this setup. I mean, Hybrid just trying to chip away at a distance for so long, trying to find some vision off the back of those W's. And in the end, it's just a whimper from CGA. I'll throw it over to you to break this down for me.
So the dredge line doesn't come forwards with Nemo. Nemo just fishing. Not sure what he's fishing for, and his fishing rod gets pulled all the way in. And just with the reset there, Udapon able to do so much. It's really sad for CJ. They really didn't need that fight. Before the end, that'll be 2 swift kills, the Baron buff, over to DFM. You don't have to do a lot right now, but play it standard, play the lanes forwards, keep Udapon alive and happy, keep denying Kaido these engages. Ebby was looking for the flank even, they knew. They were fishing for a fight in mid, and just didn't even have to do anything. We didn't have to find hybrid. Just was able to push the fight forward so well. And with the Mountain Dragon coming up now, you can't help but think this is going to be Soul.
Kassin!
He's in deep. He knows that this is going to have to be a bit of a hero one-way ticket into the back of this Mountain Dragon. Can't see it just yet.
Oh my goodness, the cone right over the wall, just a bit too early. Didn't have the vision to make a better judgment call and when to go. But finds the steal and the objective bounty. Can it be enough as Hybrid taking the ultimate back? But Evie just bursts him as if he was made of tissue paper. Nap getting the multi-man ultimate, but it's not going to really mean anything as Udapon is continuing to rampage. It's the triple kill. It's the ace. The Mountain Drake not really worth that trade-off, as DFM can just completely crack open the base now. Do they have time to go for the end here, Temp?
It's looking pretty likely. Unfortunately, they get the dragon. Huge play from Kassin, able to duck, dive, dip, dodge, and dodge out of the way of danger. But his team decides to join in. They're looking for the full reversal. They didn't just want the dragon; they wanted to win the game. It was possible, but the approach very difficult. DFM could just turn around, use all their cooldowns on the heroes, and with that coming through, it will be the end. Sort of a disappointing end from a CJ side that looked like they might have a glimmer of hope there.
Yeah, there was just no wave clear or stall capability available for CJ in the end, and DFM just needed that one fight to bring it on home. An expected result, a couple of flashes in the pan of decent performance coming through from CGA, but ultimately it was the DFM show from start to finish.
CGA came in with a plan, and similar to a surprised Burning Core, I believe, recently, that did sort of win draft against DFM. DFM adapt once in the early game. They adapt, they commit. They maybe do something you wouldn't expect with their characters. It was more expected here. That Zin's out, getting out early on the map. But they just twist it once, and then your adaptation is lost. The Kaiser completely broken open, Hybrid not able to carry CGA in this game. And with that, DFM just continues to look so good. We need to see this higher order of thinking where you can break your own plays to try and stop DFM in the first few minutes, just stealing an advantage from nowhere.
Yeah, we'll have to see if those adaptations can continue to come forward. We will go into a deeper dive on where exactly it all went wrong for Crest Gaming after a short break. So stay right where you are. We'll be back with the desk momentarily.
Overall, potentially, but you know, there were real moments of hope. CGA really pulled back a few of those engages. That small unit fight in the bottom lane, they really executed their comp to the highest degree. That was exciting to see, and you know, it really wasn't the hybrid show today, but that's okay. It was still a decent watch.
Yeah, DFM continuing to commit the heists, get away with murder, and build up those advantages that maybe they shouldn't. But when you can skill gap like that, who's going to stop you? CGA, like Temporal points out, couple bright spots, especially that Fracas down in the bot lane where they turned it around. Harp getting a bit too greedy to dredge line back in. The immediate turnaround onto the flashless, cleanseless Utapon. Good stuff to see, but at the end of the day, CGA just couldn't convert on it. But you know, it's positive steps to build on moving forward, I'm sure. Twenty-one and 3, baby. Yeah, gonna be interesting to see what the adjustments will be. I mean, we're squarely towards the end of things. This was the completion of the third round, or the second round robin, rather. We're now moving into the final chapter, and maybe CGA can continue to find the ascendancy, but all eyes on Rascal Jester, all eyes on Sengaku and DFM, of course. Big triumvirate of power near the top of the standings there. Yeah, as I'm getting the report, Brackish, that you can't be heard. Not sure if that's
Oh,
a Twitch-wide thing, but we'll get on that in just a second. But to sum it up, Brackish definitely just sort of highlighting the soup in the middle of the LJL standing situation, what the sort of playoff seeding matches left to jockey for will be. And as he says, V3 even still in the conversation, if not practically in a very literal sense, technically maybe if they, you know, went full I don't know, dark magic, sold their souls, won every
Sorcery.
game.
Yeah.
Just
like
stay
all
away
of
from
them-
the dark magic in the LJL. To be honest, it doesn't matter too much. You either come second or you come sixth. There's nearly no difference in the way you play at the playoffs. You're gonna have to play that many matches anyway, unless you're in the Juggernaut. So I wouldn't worry too much. But that battle for sixth, you're right, it's real tense. And with Axis, with the SoftBank Hawks vying to not come seventh, to try and sneak into our playoffs and then swing upwards, it's going to be pretty exciting.
They've both shown us things recently too. SoftBank Hawks and Axis. So the bottom of the table, the hot stove is heating up beneath them. That is for sure.
Well, there are no foregone conclusions just yet in the LJL. We close the book on the second chapter, the second act of LJL Spring. With that, we still have 7 more matches for every team, several more days, starting tomorrow, the first time that we will have a Monday broadcast in this spring. So if you're able to watch it, absolutely do check it out. More LGL action will be coming. Thank you all very much for watching. I have been Brackish Brit. Thank you, Dodge and Temporal, for coming along for the second half of the day. We had Reed on the production at first, and then Master Swan, our glorious founder, stepped in to fill the gap after those tech issues. So thank you to those as well. Thank you also to Max Formal for his first stint on the caster desk. And that'll do it for us. Thank you very much once again for watching. Super Week, let's go. Thank you for watching. Catch you tomorrow on the LJL.